My name's Jennifer Shin, and this is Coralie. I want to thank Blanc for inviting me today. And today I'll be talking to you about technology and education, more specifically, augmented reality as a technology. So as you could see from my slide before, my slides have all been translated into French to help all of you, but I will actually be presenting in English. Coralie here is actually French, so if you have any questions at the end of the session or outside of the session, feel free to ask us in French or in English, as well as over email. So Coralie and I work on Augment Education. This is basically the education initiative and the education arm of the augmented reality company Augment. We work in partnership with schools and in education organizations and with teachers and students to raise awareness about augmented reality and kind of incorporate it into the education programs within schools and after school programs in an advantageous and beneficial way. Okay, a little bit of a brief overview of what I'll be talking about today. There'll be education and technology as a general overview, then augmented reality and Augment specifically, a few of the uses of augmented reality in education, and how you could get started with augmented reality today, right now, or right afterwards. So technology. Technology is this huge part of our lives. I've been kind of in the back a little bit, and all of you are on your phones and on your laptops, and it has undoubtedly been a huge part in your personal life as well as your work life. This has, of course, seeped into education. For most people, a quarter of their lives in the beginning are dedicated to the education space, to learning. And even as an adult, you are constantly going to professional trainings. You're coming here to learn. And you're also doing maybe MOOC classes or online courses to constantly be learning more about the world around you. So why is this actually important? Why is it important for technology and education to go hand in hand? So a few slides about that. So first is what I'd like to consider tech literacy. So as our technology improves and as our society becomes more dependent on technology, it's more and more important for everyone to be tech literate. Our schools, basically, you want your students to be ready for the workforce so that they are able to adapt to any technology that is thrown your way. So for example, if you are using a word processor like Google Docs, it's more likely that you'll be able to easily adapt to Apple Pages or Microsoft Office. So when you're in school, you need to be able to build years of experience using this technology so that once you go into the workforce, you have the skills and knowledge, not just of a specific program, but for you to be able to adapt your skills to any program that's thrown your way. I'm sure for many of us, you have been at work and someone gives you a program to use and they're like, oh, you have to learn this because it's important for your job. Sometimes technology gets kind of a bad reputation because I think in schools it's kind of seen as something that is unnecessary and kind of thrown into the classroom at random. But education technology has actually been an important part of all of our lives for generations. So here you have iPads, which are becoming more and more popular within the schools, tablets and iPads. Before that, you had these computer labs where everyone learned how to use your computers, and you guys had those like typing lessons. I remember those. Before that, you had calculators, which I'm sure all of us learned in school. And before that, you could even consider the abacus a type of education technology. If you think about it, back then, that was technology. And it's something that actually is a tool that is given to students to kind of be able to help them learn, counting and numbers in kind of this tactile and visual way. So another reason to learn, have technology within the classroom is to facilitate learning. Technology is basically, there isn't one system to fit everything. You can't have an education system that works for every single student. Some of us are more visual learners, some of us are more tactile learners, some of us are better when we listen to audio. This is what happens with technology. You are giving people this opportunity, you are giving students an opportunity to learn in this multi-pronged approach. You could do, you could learn from radio, you could learn from television, you can learn from screens. You have all of this opportunity to kind of bring all of this together to reach more people. I'm personally from the States, so that's kind of my expertise, but in the States, our education system is failing us. It's not working for a lot of students, and it's falling through the cracks. And with technology, you realize that you reach more people that you weren't able to fit into the system with just a book solution. And finally, there's access to information. If you are on your computers, if you are on your tablets or your phones, you know that technology and information is at the touch of your fingertips. Anything you want to know, if you see a celebrity cross the street and you want to remember the celebrity's name or remember what movie they were in, you could look that up right now. And I know there's a lot of people who say maybe this amount of information that you have is negative and maybe not the best situation, but regardless of where you stand in that situation, we now have to understand that students who don't have access to this information are at a disadvantage. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, all of us have it. And if you don't have it, it's kind of putting you at a disadvantage when you go into the workforce. So kind of bringing all those things together, this ability for tech literacy, facilitate learning, and access to information kind of all combines together into augmented reality. In addition to all of these reasons for using augmented reality, what it actually does is also connect you to the real world. Technology is often blamed for having us be really involved in our screens, constantly like looking into the black mirror of our computers or into our phones and not being able to interact with things that are happening around us. Augmented reality actually combines those things together. You have the digital information that you have access to on top of your real world environment, and this is this opportunity to enhance what you're seeing right now. So I know for the past few days you have all been hearing about augmented reality and virtual reality, so I'm going to quickly go through these quick slides. If you have any further questions in French or in English, you could ask us more about it later. So what is augmented reality? Quick definition that we kind of consider is augmented reality is a technology that overlays digital information. This can be images, 3D models, or videos in the real environment and in real time. So there is the spectrum, which you may or may not have seen. There is the real world, what you're seeing right now, on one end of the spectrum. Then on the other end of the spectrum, you have virtual reality. So this is, usually you see those huge headsets that go over your head, and you're completely immersed in this digitally constructed environment. You don't see what you see around you, and you're in a completely different environment. So augmented reality is in the middle. You see basically the physical information around you in the physical world, but you also see the digital information on top. This allows that digital information, again, to enhance your world and provide you with information that you wouldn't have without that technology. There's a lot of words and terms that are coming out these days. There's augmented virtuality, there's mixed reality. I'm sure there's another type of reality that's going to come out next week. Most of the time, it will fall into this spectrum in one way or another. So where is augmented reality going, and virtual reality? So it is estimated that by 2020, which is not that far away, that it will be a $120 billion industry. So this is because more people will have tablets, more people will have phones, there'll be better Wi-Fi access across all platforms. And this might actually have changed recently since this past summer with Pokemon Go. But before then, we actually often heard more about virtual reality than augmented reality. But if you look, the dark blue is actually the augmented reality at the bottom, and virtual reality is at the top. As you could see, augmented reality is projected for greater growth than virtual reality. And it's because, again, it's this information for you to access the real world and this digital information. And therefore, I think a lot more industries see it as more applicable. So you have a lot of money in this space. And then, of course, you will have a lot of people who are interested. So these are some familiar brands, I'm sure, and they're all in one way or another getting involved in augmented reality. So again, you probably have heard a lot about this, but Microsoft HoloLens, Project Tango, which is by Google, which allows you to sense depth. Oculus, which is actually a virtual reality technology, but Facebook has come out, or Mark Zuckerberg has come out and said that he wants to get involved in the augmented reality space as well. So a little bit about Augment. Where does Augment fit into this big space of augmented reality? Augment is a leading augmented reality software as a service platform. It's a mobile application. You could download it for free right now on Android or iOS. And in the education side, it's an interactive learning tool that allows you to allows educators and content providers to engage students and teachers to learn in and out of the classroom. The nice thing with being on a mobile device is that not only do you have access to it in schools, you all have access to it right now. So Augment's powerhouse is its 3D engine. I'll show you this a little bit later, but we built our 3D engine from scratch, and it ensures that the models are of great graphic complexity, but you have to realize that your tablets and your phones, although they are as powerful as they are today and improving, they actually have a limit to how much they can process. And so our 3D engine kind of balances that fine line of being able to show all the details it can, but also be within the power of your mobile device. A little bit of a history. We were founded in 2011 by Jean-François, Michael, and Cyril in Paris. In 2012, we were accepted into France's Le Camping incubator, which is now NUMA. In about a year, slightly over a year ago, we were funded by Salesforce Ventures, and we have doubled in size within that time and have grown to include New York City and Orlando. Most of our offices, our New York City and Orlando offices, are mostly dedicated to marketing and sales, while our Paris office, which is our headquarters, includes us, as well as the dev team, as well as our CEO. So a few numbers about Augment. We have 2 million downloads of the app, 2,000 downloads per day, 2,000 new users per week, 150 models on the platform. All these numbers basically sums up to the fact that if you go on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store and you look up augmented reality, we are the most downloaded and highly rated app on both of those platforms. And out of the 150 models on the platform, I said that 150,000 models on the platform, I mentioned that it's free to download. You can actually have access to a lot of those models right now because they are public to anyone who has the app, regardless of whether you have an account or not. So I can continue and tell you all about augmented reality, but what better way is there to actually show you what augmented reality is? I'm gonna go to the Augment app. So first, I know my presentation is very education focused, but I'm gonna show you a few models that are not education related so that all of you can see how these industries are seeing how you could use augmented reality in their space. So Augment, this is Augment. This is our library of products or our models, and it's an open platform, so anyone could upload 3D models. We have worked with L'Oreal, they are one of our clients, and basically, it allows them to go into, their salespeople are equipped with an iPad and Augment, and you could see what it looks like, and then take a picture, and then share it with whoever you need. A huge portion of our users are actually within the architecture and construction space. And so here you have a model of their buildings, of a building complex, but what you can do is actually kind of go into the space and see what it looks like. And this is kind of where that line blurs. It is this augmented reality and virtual reality space. If you saw this on a headset, it would technically be considered virtual reality. So it's all kind of movable on that spectrum. The great thing about using Augment for architecture is this opportunity to kind of skip out on creating physical prototypes. If you need to make if you made a mistake or need to make a change on your model, you could make it online and show it to your clients directly on your iPad without having to create these constructions and spend thousands of dollars on them. Another use is many of our retailers are using Augment to visualize their products. And the great thing about it is you could view it as if you were holding it in the palm of your hand. So for example, if you're trying to shop online and you want to know what a sneaker looks like, or if you want to know what a washing machine looks like, but you're not close to a store, you could see what it looks like directly in your house without visiting. And if you want to go more into the entertainment industry, you could add animations, as you could see, and kind of create all these memes that make it a little more fun. It may not be the most educational value in some senses, but you know, it engages a lot of students. I think this one I think it's one of our most popular models, actually. So how does augmented reality go along with education? As you saw there you have this opportunity to see things in 3D. So it goes from 2D to 3D. So what you had in books before, in textbooks, students are no longer bound by this 2-dimension that you have. You had books before, and your content was solely what was in those books and what the teachers knew. And then you had screens, and then your content was solely what was available on the screens. And this is not to say that this is to replace either of those options. I can't imagine augmented reality replacing books in a certain sense, personally, because I love them. But it's this opportunity to kind of create an addition to it, to have, again, this multi-prong approach. You have this opportunity to go from 2D to 3D, and it's basically, again, let me give you an example. So as I was saying, it's not this opportunity to actually replace books and to replace 2D options or screens. It's actually to create an addition to them. So the great thing about it is, for example, if you had a book right here, which I will show you in a second, and you had an image, you could actually scan your image if you have Wi-Fi and be able to view what this looks like in 3 dimensions. This is actually, we work with the British Museum in London, and this is actually one of their models that they've created on hand. So you might not be at the British Museum, you might not be in London, but you could still see their artwork. Okay. Another more important thing is that you're able to interact with these models. As I showed you before, you could turn them around, you could flip them over, you could see all the angles of them and be able to hold it in your hand. What's important about technology is not the technology itself. It's not the computer that's important. It's not the internet that's important. It's how the students interact with that technology. And it's so important that the students are able to become active learners and not just watch and be passive. And that's, again, something that augmented reality can do, is that it gives you this opportunity to learn more and be actually kind of in this conversation with your 3D models. So I'm going to show a few examples of how Augment has been used for the education space. As you saw before with this, what we call a tracker, which I'll describe more about. We actually have booklets. If you're interested, you could pick them up. They have a story in English, but on the right-hand side, there is an image, and all of those images are scannable. So if you download the app on iOS or Android, it's free to download, and it's completely free to see what these 3D models look like. So feel free to take them. We have a whole bunch. So how has Augment been used in the education space? We have, for example, engineering, students using Augment. here, I don't know if you see, and you can see in the photo too, you have this 2D image of a 3D object. This is called an isometric, or they're also orthographic views. And basically, what students have used in the engineering space is that, especially in engineering, what you work in is in 3D. So it's this being able to translate what you see on the 2-dimension to the 3rd dimension. So a lot of students actually draw these 2D designs. And they also create their 3D models. And you could connect them side by side and see what it looks like. And I know maybe this is not the most impressive for all of you, but a student created this, and the student was ecstatic, and for them, it's a huge accomplishment to be able to do this. And so you could see it side by side and kind of rotate it. You could also have a 3D view so that you could actually see what it looks like without the background there. And again, it's this opportunity so that they could translate one knowledge into this other knowledge. This knowledge that they get from books into this knowledge that they could get into 3D models. So this is one of my favorite examples, actually, and it goes more into the product design space. I don't have the actual model to show you here, but as you could see from the background, a 8-year-old created this. He actually drew a pair of glasses that he wanted to design and did a prototype of a model, and he actually 3D modeled it into this another application called Morphe, which allows you to very easily create 3D designs, and created these pair of glasses so that he could show them and propose them as something to sell to adults within his class and outside of his class. Then you have the science space. So science is a study of the world around you. It's a study of the universe. And our world is not, again, restricted to the 2-dimension. So this is why it's incredibly important that students are able to see what models look like, whether they're molecules or whether they're skeletons in augmented reality. So you have a whole bunch of different options. First of all, let's see. You have, gas particles. You could see what these gas particles look like. There's a space that they are restricted to. You could also see what liquid particles look like and how they only pertain to the bottom portion of it in comparison to the gas particles where they all move around. We've also worked with a student who is now a doctor. He was a medical student at the University of Strasbourg, and he actually created this book to help his eventual students learn about dentistry. And so he has this 2D image of teeth. Now if you look at it, let's try that again. Here we go. So you could see how valuable this would be to a dentist student. It's not just the 2D and the image. It's being able to rotate it, and this is how the jaw movements work, and kind of being able to see what it's like. And then being able to see it at the palm of your hands and kind of rotating it each way you'd like. And then finally, there's what I'd like to call storytelling, because it actually encompasses so many different topics. This is not just literature and English. Imagine you were reading a story about a shark, and that dancing shark popped up out of your book. But it's also about archaeology and history, anything that actually is trying to relay any type of story to your students. Okay. So for example, here we have the University of Reading in London. And this is actually an image of ancient Rome. And he is a classics professor, and he has this in his books, actually. And you could actually scan it and see what ancient Rome looked like in architecturally. So this is actually in the right place. And you could see actually what these buildings would look like. And some of his students also 3D designed, so they actually helped him with his assets as well. And also, we also worked with the Idaho Museum of Natural History. It's a very small museum, and they created these like fun playing cards in the museum, and you could cut them out and you could bring them home, and if you have a mobile device, you're able to do that as well. And if you cut one out and scan it, oops. There we go. You could see what this skull looks like. Lost its place. This is much easier. And you could kind of rotate it in your hand. And again, you could bring the studies that you learned at the museum and bring it back into the classroom. And it's not even just back into the classroom. You could bring it back into your home and show it to your parents or show it to fellow students. And actually, I'm going to show you one more model, which I wasn't planning on, but it's actually my favorite. So this is actually a student who is learning, who's studying archaeology. And I find it really impressive because she is the one who did the 3D scans for this. Let's see if this one works. And you could see this is something that was found in the Lincoln Historical Site in the United States, and it's teeth. So you could see the 2D picture right next to it, and you could see the 3D artifact in your hand. And again, this also helps for museums because museums can't bring out these artifacts to every person to hold. It actually preserves the object, allows people to learn, and this is all, in many ways, you can make this to be dimensionally correct, so it's the actual size. So you could study about it beyond, just looking at it. So as you saw in the first story, there was the engineering students who actually created those 3D models. So it's applicable for those especially learning to 3D model in animation or in engineering. But it's also, we have some of our content on our own, but for those who are doing animations today, I know many of you do, as well as the content providers in many other ways, it's important for you to bring your content to the students, and you could do it on the Augment platform. Mostly because also, we provide education subscriptions to students and for teachers and schools for free. So basically, the hardest part about technology sometimes is the financial burden. Oftentimes you go into a school and they would love to give iPads and tablets to everyone. Or if you go into school, they would love to bring an extra technology or program. You can't do that with the amount of money that's available. And the great thing about our program is that especially in the older students, but more and more in the younger students, everyone has a tablet or a smartphone that they could use Augment on, and it's absolutely free for them, which we make Coca-Cola and L'Oreal pay for. So augmented reality is often seen as this new space, and they're like, oh, it's so recent, we don't really know how to kind of integrate it into our schools, which may or may not be true, but what's important is that as I've worked in this industry, you realize that many people and many actually governments are endorsing augmented reality. For example, in the United States, I think it was just 2 months ago, they released a $700,000 grant specifically to AR, VR in education so that people could create apps that are beneficial for students and in the classroom. And in France, I'm not sure if all of you are aware of this, but the Ministry of Education, Corley could probably speak a little bit more about this in specifics, the Ministry of Education actually put augmented reality in their design and innovation recommendations for, I think, what I would consider middle school technology courses. Yeah.
College.
Okay. This actually has helped us tremendously, mostly because we have French speakers in-house and a lot of our content is available in French. And we actually, at this moment right now, have 1,000 teachers within this space in college who have a ac.edu, like toulouse.fr email, an academy email. And I know that there's way more than 1,000 on our platform, because I'm sure many people have signed up without that email who are also in this space. So where to start? How can you get started? We're using Augment. First, you create an account on manager.augment.com. If you click on Upgrade Now, and you are a business, you have a 14-day free trial that you could try out. If you'd like to work in partnership with us, feel free to email me. My email's at the end of this presentation. If you are a student, a teacher, or part of a school, whether you're an administrator or a integrator, you could sign up for an education subscription, which is free. Again, we really want to make this as least of a burden on schools and to students. And so everything we provide at a costly price to industries, we actually provide to the education community at no cost. So in the education subscription, what's included is that you could download your models, whether you want them to public to everyone or private just to your school or your fellow students. You're also able to share within our system as well. You could create trackers. So all of the 2D images that I've shown you, for example, when he was a student, he used the education subscription and created all these trackers in the book. And you're able to synchronize across a whole bunch of different tablets and devices. So whatever is happening on your iPhone or your Android is also happening on your tablet. So next, once you have an account, you download your models. If you are aware of 3D modeling, you have to know that, again, your mobile device is not as powerful as your computer. So you have to abide by certain guidelines. That's under 1 million polygon counts, your model has to be. And your preferred formats are DAE or Collada and OBJ files. This is for the more technical people out there. Oops. And we are very compatible and actually provide plugins for a whole number of different modeling softwares. Some of these are very familiar. There's Autodesk products like Revit and Maya on 3ds Max. If you are aware of SketchUp and Blender, those are very popular in the education space because, one, they're free, two, they're very easy to use. Then once you have that, all of your, as you saw on my iPad and my app, you have everything show up on your online accounts. You can organize them, put them into folders, share them with others in your classroom. If you're a teacher, you could share them with everyone in your classroom. And I showed you this, but I didn't really go into depth with it, so I'm going to quickly go over how you view your models. There's two ways of viewing your models on Augment. There is with the tracker and without a tracker. So without a tracker is like a Coca-Cola fridge or the L'Oreal stand. It's usually objects that have to appear on the ground, and they're great for visualizing big objects. That's buildings, big industrial machines, dinosaurs, anything along that spectrum. And then there is with a tracker, which you've seen plenty of. So what is a tracker? It's an augmented 2D image that is linked to a 3D model. It could also be linked to other things, but to make it simple, 3D models. A good tracker is complex. It can't just be, you can't just write your name on a piece of paper. There has to be enough contrast, and it should be on matte paper because if you have glossy paper, the light actually, depending on your light situation, it might be reflective. So you download your tracker on the manager, and then you can actually connect it to a URL, a 3D model or folder. And afterwards, if you want to know more details about the URL and folder side, feel free to talk to us. So if you all want to take out your smartphones and download Augment and scan all of those right now, you have thousands of free 3D models that you could just view. So connect your device. And the last thing is augment.com/education. This is our website for the education community. If you are looking for inspiration, or if you have any questions, or if you'd like to partner with us, you could actually do everything on this website as well. So go there. There's a separate section for students and a separate section for educators. And finally, my email, if you're interested in contacting me, is just jennifer@augment.com. And there is a little video. If you didn't really see what I was doing and if it was unsteady, this is a lot clearer. So this is also a student who created a augmented graphic novel. And that's it. Anyone have any questions?
Merci Jennifer. Naturellement, vous n'aurez pas manqué de noter que, contrairement à ce que je vous avais dit, toute la présentation s'est faite en anglais. Mais je vous invite à poser vos questions en français. Je suis sûr que Coralie et Jennifer y répondront. Y a-t-il des questions ?
Dans le logo, on voit que ça ressemble au logo de Unity. Est-ce qu'on peut utiliser des objets 3D de l'asset store de Unity ?
Alors, à partir du moment où ils ont un format compatible avec Augment, vous pouvez utiliser n'importe quel modèle 3D. Donc, il y a sur notre Help Center, vous avez la liste de tous les formats qu'on accepte. Et on a mis l'accent sur Collada et Wavefront parce que c'est les plus populaires, mais on supporte aussi FBX, STL. Je ne les connais pas tous par cœur, mais en tout cas, il y a quand même une liste assez longue. Donc, il n'y a pas un soft spécifique ou un format spécifique qu'on accepte.
Et ce que vous faites, c'est un peu comme Vuforia ou c'est de la reconnaissance ?
Alors, c'est d'ailleurs Vuforia qui est intégré pour vraiment juste la partie reconnaissance d'image. Donc, les trackers que vous voyez, c'est via Vuforia et tout le reste a été fait in-house.
Très bien. Et, une dernière question. C'est gratuit pour les étudiants. Est-ce que c'est gratuit pour les non-étudiants, mais qui ne font pas ça dans un but commercial ?
Alors, pour les organismes à but non lucratif, c'est un petit peu plus au cas par cas. Donc, il n'y a pas une règle générale, mais ça peut être gratuit ou en tout cas à des prix préférentiels.
Très bien. Merci beaucoup.
Je vous en prie.
Merci. D'autres questions ? Non. Moi, j'en ai une. L'activité d'Augment, donc vous avez naturellement évoqué le secteur de l'éducation, mais il y a aussi tout ce qui est muséo, tourisme, patrimoine, où vos technologies sont présentes ?
Oui, on a pas mal de musées en fait, qui travaillent avec nous. On a évoqué le British Museum. En France, il y avait un projet qui s'appelait le musée silencieux, je ne sais pas si vous en avez entendu parler, à Paris, qui présentait en fait des antiquités de l'époque romaine qui ont été détruites. Et du coup, on n'a plus que des fragments de ces objets-là. Et grâce à Augment, les visiteurs pouvaient voir l'objet tel qu'il était au moment où il faisait encore qu'un seul morceau.
D'accord.
On a des artistes aussi de street art qui ont travaillé avec Augment pour faire découvrir le 20e arrondissement à Paris. Donc c'était sur les murs des immeubles ou par terre, il y avait des trackers qui étaient dessinés à la craie. Et pareil, on pouvait voir des objets ou des installations artistiques.
D'accord, très bien.
Et alors, désolé,
allez-y, oui.
On a travaillé aussi avec l'artiste Orlan. Et ça, c'est intéressant parce que...
Là, pour ce qui la concerne, il n'y a pas grand-chose à augmenter au niveau...
Alors, en fait, c'était pour sa série d'autoportraits des masques de l'Opéra de Pékin. Et quand on scannait le canevas, elle sortait du canevas en 3D et jonglait avec les objets. Et cet exemple-là est intéressant parce que dans cet exemple précis, la réalité augmentée fait partie de l'œuvre d'art. Ce n'est pas juste un outil pour accéder à l'art, c'est vraiment une partie intégrante. Et donc si on achetait le Canva, eh ben, on avait ça avec.
D'accord. Des témoignages, des réflexions? Non? Bien, bah écoute, si, pardon, là-haut.
Oui, bonjour, Étienne Rice, réseau Canopé. C'était pour savoir où est-ce que votre société gagnait de l'argent, parce que vous proposez un modèle gratuit, est-ce qu'il va le rester? Donc si on va dire, si les étudiants publient du contenu, est-ce qu'ils vont pouvoir le garder? Comment ça va se passer? Merci.
Alors en fait, l'éducation, ça va rester gratuit. Par contre, là où on gagne de l'argent, c'est avec le B2B et le retail. Donc on propose ces licences-là pour équiper des forces de vente, par exemple, notamment Coca-Cola ou L'Oréal, où les vendeurs sont équipés avec des licences Augmente et présentent leurs produits directement en magasin, directement dans les salons de coiffure. Et eux ont des licences pour accéder, pour pouvoir synchroniser des modèles hors ligne, pour pouvoir télécharger des modèles privés, ce qui est souvent important dans l'industrie parce qu'on ne veut pas partager ses prototypes. Voilà, donc c'est ça. Et les sites de e-commerce, donc si par exemple l'app Discount a intégré un bouton de réalité augmentée via notre SDK qui permet de, si le produit existe en 3D dans notre base de données, de le visualiser avant de l'acheter. Donc si on veut acheter, je ne sais pas moi, une espresso par exemple, on peut la regarder depuis l'app Discount chez soi et choisir la couleur ou la taille qui correspond. Donc c'est vraiment ça qui génère notre revenu. Et la partie éducation est tout un autre volet, mais qui n'est pas amené à générer du contenu, qui est du revenu, pardon, mais qui est plus là pour justement j'ai pas le mot en français là, le awareness, enfin pour éduquer les gens justement, pour faire un peu d'évangélisation, puisqu'une grosse partie de la réalité augmentée demande encore d'être éduqués. Et beaucoup de clients ne savent pas ce que c'est ou ne savent pas s'en servir. Donc voilà, l'idée de ne pas monnayer l'éducation, c'est de le rendre accessible à tous. Et puis, encore une fois, comme disait Jennifer, les étudiants sont les travailleurs de demain, donc seront amenés à utiliser la réalité augmentée.
Merci. Oui, encore une question. Non, avec un micro, s'il vous plaît.
Oui, je suis Luc Polato dans l'Éducation nationale. C'est pas une question, en fait, c'est plutôt une réflexion polémique, mais la question précédente disait quel était votre modèle économique. Et moi, j'allais vous demander où est-ce que vous allez payer vos impôts, parce que je voudrais faire un lien avec la présentation précédente sur les nouveaux pauvres. Et je m'aperçois qu'on s'appuie sur énormément de technologies absolument extrêmement pointues. Mais si les travailleurs de demain dont vous parlez, si on veut penser à eux, comment on fait pour éviter de retomber dans le film précédent? J'essaie de faire un lien entre les deux choses.
Alors, j'ai pas eu la chance de voir le film précédent parce qu'on répétait, pour être tout à fait honnête. Mais
C'était sur la précarité.
Alors déjà, on paye nos impôts en France, pour information. On a notre siège en France, on est une société française, on a juste une filiale aux États-Unis. Pour des questions plutôt pratiques qu'autre chose, ça nous évite de prendre l'avion plusieurs fois par mois. Je pense vraiment que pour tout ce qui est vraiment très nouveau, il faut un moment au moins où c'est accessible à tout le monde pour pouvoir voir déjà à quoi ça sert et comment on peut en faire quelque chose d'intéressant. Toutes les nouvelles technologies ne sont pas bonnes à garder ou en tout cas sont amenées à évoluer. Et le fait d'avoir un volet gratuit et un volet payant nous permet à la fois évidemment de grandir en tant qu'entreprise, de pouvoir embaucher des gens, de pouvoir développer notre outil. Mais le côté gratuit permet de faire parler de nous et d'avoir un contenu. La communauté éducative est très très active sur Augmente, nous propose beaucoup de case studies, c'est pour ça qu'on a tous ces petits bouclettes avec tous ces success stories. Ils sont très, très demandeurs en fait d'avoir des partenariats. Et c'est souvent quand même plus facile quand c'est gratuit, puisque d'avoir des financements dans un milieu public qui a forcément un budget limité est toujours plus difficile qu'une entreprise.